Vanderbilt 7-1 for the first time since 1941, and they're ready to go on the road and stun the Texas Longhorns.
You are Locked On Vandy, your daily podcast on the Vanderbilt Commodores, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Corey Burton. Thanks for making us part of your day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Now, today's episode, man, it feels good to be recording this at 7-1. It feels good to be recording this as a top 10 team heading into Austin, which was always going to be a very tough road game. We're going to talk about how Vanderbilt opens as a 2.5-point underdog to the Texas Longhorns. We're going to talk about how both of these teams are the two of the more penalized teams in the league, talking about how we can clean up that. 7-1 for the first time since 1941. We're going to dissect this ugly win, and we're going to figure out what Vanderbilt can take from it down to Austin to apply in their efforts in their journey to beat the Texas Longhorns. So let's start there. Winning ugly. Now, people are worried about winning ugly because when you're watching it as a fan, of course you want to dominate every single time you step out on the field. You want to beat everybody 45-0, get your whole bench cleared out. Like you want a Georgia State type game every single game. But that's just not how things go in this league. This is the SEC. And I said it in my live read or my live reaction that's how you win in this league. That's how championship pedigree teams do it. They encounter these types of games. They encounter this type of adversity. Hell, Alabama in their 6 titles with Nick Saban, I think one of them had an undefeated team. They all faced adversity. Not only did they drop one game in those seasons, but they also had some games where you're like, Alabama should have lost that game. You know, there were several years where Texas A&M, they should have lost to Texas A&M, and they didn't. They narrowly escaped a loss here and a loss there. It just kind of comes with the territory as you're trudging along through a very difficult conference. It's going to happen, and you're going to meet great defenses. You're going to meet teams that are like you. So for people freaking out that it was an ugly win, I'll take an ugly win 11 times out of 10. I'll take an ugly win all the time. There's a lot to learn from it. And yeah, could we have done a lot of things better? Absolutely. Like offense was rough. It was rough. The execution was rough. I thought the game plan was good. I thought the play calling was good. I just don't think Missouri allowed us to execute. And that's something that, can be fixed. But again, they were trying to find those matchups, and they were trying to find running room. They were trying to find a way around those edge guys, and they just couldn't do it. And they did it on a couple of occasions, which was good enough for them to win. They scored 17 points, which is good enough to win. So those are the type of things, like finding a way to win in a situation where your offense can't get any rhythm, can't get any footing. Your defense is standing tall, but not consistently because the other team is making plays. Like your back's constantly against the wall, and you're constantly standing up and fighting back. 2 turnovers on downs, 2 field goals where they should have been 2 field goal attempts where they should have been touchdowns. 1 made, 1 missed, a takeaway, and only giving up 10 points after all of that. Your defense played outstandingly, right? And for anyone who were in the comments on my live reaction saying that was a rough defense, or that was rough this, rough that, this was an ultimate team win. And this is how championship DNA is built, right? This is how, when you're making a run, you need that win, right? Vanderbilt of old would have folded and lost that game by 3 touchdowns. Hell, last year's group would have probably lost that game. The 23 group would have gotten shellacked, and any other team before that, up until there was a couple years under Mason where they would have had a chance. But for the most part, like, those are types of games that Vanderbilt usually loses. So, when you look at the mindset and you look at what's developing, that is the championship DNA that you need. That is what you need to do. Winning ugly is the thing in the SEC. You have to learn how to do that because half your wins are going to come that way. Why? Because everybody's good. Everybody's good in this league. Texas has won 2 straight games in overtime against Kentucky, against Mississippi State. You think they want to be going overtime against those 2 teams? Mississippi State hadn't won a conference game in 3 years. They would love to win one ugly. Florida has won some ugly games. LSU, well, they've won some ugly games, but they've also lost 3 really ugly games as well. And, well, they fired Brian Kelly, just FYI. But it's something that really I think people don't realize how good this actually is. The resiliency, the toughness, the wherewithal to make the plays when you needed them the most, like CJ Hurd timing that blitz up coming off the edge. Like, that was a perfect play in the perfect scenario where this team needed a jolt. He provided it, and it was great. It was absolutely great. Like, timing that blitz, calling that blitz when you needed that play. Because Missouri was methodically driving down the field. They dominated time of possession. They were methodically driving down the field. You could see the air just coming out of the Vanderbilt team and out of the stadium. And then all of a sudden, CJ Hurd, boom, gets that takeaway, and that stadium erupted, man. The stadium, from what I've heard from people that were there, was as electric of an atmosphere as it's ever been at Vanderbilt. And the crowd was still balanced 65, 70 to 30, 35, whatever. But it was balanced in favor of Vanderbilt fans, which is surprising. So that's something that you can take away and say, okay, well, the big overarching program themes that you can take away: toughness and resiliency. That's what you need to win on the road. That's what it's going to take to win in Austin. Are those traits that you use to beat Missouri? So, number one, that's the things you need. That's when you're 2.5-point underdogs, you're on the road in that environment. This is what you need. You have Bevo, the big drum. You have 100,000 people. You have Matthew McConaughey on the other sideline going, hey, all right. We're going to beat you. Yeah. And you have all of that happening. You can get distracted. You have all that burnt orange out there. It's going to prepare you for kneeling, by the way. You're going to have all that burnt orange out there. It's going to be a crazy atmosphere because Texas still thinks they have a shot. And mathematically they do. But this is where Vanderbilt can make that statement and say, yeah, you thought you had a shot. You don't. Right? And that's where this type of win comes in handy for that. Right? Because if you can drag Texas down into a street fight, you can win that. That's how the identity of this team. They're going to slug you. It's going to be a slugfest. So I'm excited about this. So what did we learn? And these are the things I'm going to talk about these things as we go, cleaning up penalties and things like that. But what did we learn? The offense struggled to find a rhythm, but made just enough plays. And the key is they didn't panic. We'll talk about that more next. I'm going to talk about the penalties, and I'm going to talk about just things that can happen as Vanderbilt gets ready to take down the Longhorns. I'm going to do all of that. Just you wait. We're going to do it next. First, I want to talk about game time. That's right. College football's back, and I couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel more like a battle than the game itself. The endless queues, the hidden fees, the prices jumping to checkout. It's just terrible. And that's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees, and what you see is what you pay. It truly is the best ticketing app. And I pulled up Game Time, and just a couple of taps, I saw amazing deals all over the place. I'm talking about whatever you wanted to go to. I'm talking about your favorite college football teams and your college football games. I'm talking about concerts. I'm talking about the Nashville Predators, all of that. Right. And some of the football games the prices were as low as $25. right? And what's not to love about this app? You can see the exact view from your seat before you buy. They have this thing called zone deals. Get this. You pick the section, Game Time picks the seats, you save big. Honestly, it's faster, cheaper, and less stressful than any other way that I've bought tickets. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. All right, thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen each and every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube as a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. If you need a second listen, you might want to head over to Locked On SEC. It's getting hot over there. Locked On LSU, it's getting hot over there. Brian Kelly just got fired. You lose back-to-back. You lose to Vandy. You get shellacked by Texas A&M, and LSU administrators are like, that's enough. That's enough. It's year 4. Paid $18 million. That's enough. And Chris Gordy is probably cooking right now over there with this news. So maybe Vanderbilt had a hand in that. Maybe a little bit. Maybe they were the catalyst. They were the first catalyst to say, hey, if you lose to Texas A&M, you're done, right? So you can take pride in that you started the downward. Diego Pavi and this team started the downward slide. Full circle, baby. Here we go. All right. So what do we learn? Okay. What do we learn so that we can apply it and take it to Texas? That's the thing. We're like, what do we learn about this game, about this team that's going to be relevant for this Texas game? You're 2.5-point underdogs. Man, you're just ready to stun them, man. You built the toughness. You built the resiliency. We talked about that. You're ready to stun Texas as a 2.5-point underdog. Even though you're ranked higher in the rankings, Vegas still doesn't believe in you. Why? Because you're going down to Austin. So here's what we learned. Okay, as a review, pictured there is Cole Spence. He might be secretly a secret weapon, secret X factor here. But the offense struggled to find a rhythm, man, but they made just enough plays, and the key is they didn't panic. All right, that's the key. And what does that mean? Okay, they struggled to find a rhythm. They made just enough plays. The key is they didn't panic, right? So here's the difference. Let's look at 2 games. Alabama, Missouri. The 2 teams that truly took Vanderbilt out of what they wanted to do. They were truly able to slow them down and make them kind of uncomfortable, I guess you could say, right? They were the 2 teams that took Vanderbilt out of what they wanted to do. Against Alabama, they panicked and they turned into an air raid team, which is not good. They started throwing, they started getting 3 and outs. They didn't know what to do, and it was on the road, and everything just avalanched them, right? Against Missouri, I would say Missouri did better than Alabama at taking Vanderbilt out of what they wanted to do, because they never really let Vanderbilt do what they wanted to do. At least against Alabama, Vanderbilt was able to get started, and then Alabama adjusted, made some plays, and turned that game upside down. Against Missouri, it was tough sledding from the first play. And they had a great defensive game plan. They have great defensive personnel. Those 2 edge guys are scary good. Those interior guys, that nose guard, I can't remember his name for the life of me, but he was outstanding. He was just destroying Jordan White. Jordan White was getting nothing but holding penalties, right? That was something that they did extremely well. But what Tim Beck did this time, I don't like that he goes super conservative in those scenarios, like with the motions and things like that. Like, I don't feel like we had as many motions. Maybe they weren't reacting to it. That's my guess. If I were to ask him and say that and ask him that, like, hey, why did you go away from the motions and some of the things you do pre-snap that makes you so good? And he'd been like, well, it wasn't affecting them. They weren't really responding to that. And they maintained their leverage, and they maintained the shape of their box, or, whatever the answer might be. It probably didn't have as much of an effect when he was doing it. So he kind of got away from it, but it was tough all night. They couldn't find a rhythm, but they made just enough plays. They blocked it just well enough. MK Young bounced it, went 80 to the house. they were able to capitalize off a turnover, and they were able to go with a little bit of tempo, which is something that I actually liked that they did. They went up. I would like to see Vanderbilt go with a little tempo every once in a while, because I think they could really get in a true rhythm. And that was probably the only series. Well, actually, there was two series where they had rhythm. The one right after the turnover, and there was one earlier in the game that resulted in a punt because of penalties, stupid penalties like holdings and things like that. But they just got in a rhythm, and that they had some tempo about them, and they were hitting Eli Stowers, and they were hitting whatever. But that's something that I think, again, for them to kind of figure out and just be patient to slog through that and allow their defense was keeping them in it, so they didn't feel like they had to panic. Their defense was doing extremely well. That was probably the key difference, was the defense against Alabama versus the defense against Missouri. You had more of a chance against Missouri because the defense was playing better than they did against Ty Simpson in Alabama. And a lot of that is due to Ty Simpson being who he is, right? So that's, when you look at it, that's kind of what you can take from that. Now, otherwise, offensively, Diego said on Bussin' with the Boys that MK Young would be one to watch. He's excelled and was the difference maker this week. I mean, that 80-yard touchdown run gave a little bit of life to this offense. They were able to move the ball fairly well after that. Even though it didn't net into points, they were able to hold on to it a little bit better at times. They were able to do a little bit more offensively. They started gaining confidence defensively after that touchdown, and it led to that CJ Hurd takeaway. It led to some of the problems that Missouri was having with Matt Zollers. Now, that's just, again, he's been great. He was great in the LSU game. He's been slowly making that progress all year long. I mean, he's been really good. And Diego Pavia was right about him. And MK Young was probably, let me look at his stats again, but he was, against Missouri, it was tough sledding for a lot of people. So, like, I think when you look at the numbers, you can't get too wrapped up in the numbers, because you'll look at it and say, well, nobody did anything numbers wise. But let's look at the box score here. Kalen Young, 2 carries, 64 yards, and a touchdown. It was a 60-yarder, not an 80-yarder. No, that was Georgia State. I'm tripping. I clicked the wrong game. He had a 60-yarder against Georgia State. Against Missouri, it was here's the box score there. He had 4 carries, 86 yards, and a touchdown. It was an 80-yard touchdown. So he had 4 carries. Cedric Alexander had 10 carries, 27 yards. It was tough sledding for him. But it was, again, just overall, they weren't able to do what they wanted to do. But they just hung in there and they just kept swinging. They kept swinging, and they won. And that's all you need to know. All right, defensively. Vanderbilt's defense stood tall when it mattered. It wasn't perfect, wasn't pretty, but 10 points, 1 takeaway, 2 turnovers on downs, 2 field goal attempts when touchdowns were on the table, and forcing Missouri to miss one of those. Is a great day at the office. They were able to find what I really loved about what the defense is able to do, and I think this is something they can. I think this is something they can lean on as they move forward towards this game in Austin. Is finding balance between, and I saw this written somewhere. I can't remember which place, but I saw this written somewhere, and I thought this is a perfect way to describe it, because sometimes I don't always have the perfect words to describe what I'm thinking. I kind of just have to just get it all out and then kind of formulate it as I go. And I a lot of times stumble into it, but I saw this and it was perfect. They had a really good balance between getting natural pressure versus blitz pressure. Now, what does that mean? Okay. Natural pressure versus blitz pressure. Natural pressure means that you're getting home with your front four. You're getting pressure with your front four, whether you're getting sacks, hurries, forcing throwaways, whatever. You're getting natural pressure, and that's good, because against Texas, you're going to have to be able to get natural pressure. Now, Texas was CJ Baxter and Wisner, they're great at running the ball. So you're going to have to manufacture some of that pressure. You're going to have a great balance between run blitz, pass blitz, natural pressure, fitting the run, all that stuff, tackling in space. Like, you're going to have a stellar game plan because they got a couple of their weapons back, and Arch is starting to feel it a little bit. So, this Texas team, they're battle tested as well. Like, when you win ugly, it means you're battle tested. So this game plan defensively, I think you're going to have to figure out how to gain some consistency with this balance. You're going to have to figure out how to, limit the big chunk plays, get them off the field. And again, penalties, right? Penalties. And I understand that as a DB, you're going to have some pass interference calls. Like, there's going to be a handful of those throughout the game. It's just inevitable. You play corner, you're going to get a pass interference. It's like playing offensive line and getting a holding call. Like, yeah, you want to go perfect and not ever get a holding call, but that's not possible. You're going to get called for holding at some point. You're going to get called for pass interference at some point, right? It's just inevitable. So you have to try to limit it to where, and try to make it those situations where a pass interference works for you. Like, hey, this dude was gonna catch a bomb. Maybe I should just clip his heels and make him fall, get to 15 yards, and live to fight another day instead of their strike up the band. Bevo's going crazy. Matthew McConaughey's over there tipping his cap and clicking his boots or whatever he does over there when they score a touchdown. Like, those type of things. Not, hey, it's third down. You make a great break on the ball, but you just get tangled up because you just don't have that spatial awareness on that play. That was C.J. Hurd. Made a great break on the ball on a Bo Pribula pass. Just got tangled up. They called the interference, which, I don't know. It might have been a little soft, but it is what it is. You just got to have better spatial awareness there. But anyway, clean up the penalties. I think just clean up the egregious ones. The aggressive ones are going to happen. That's fine. They're just going to happen. So that's something you got to look at. But 2.5-point favorites, Texas is at home. We're going to talk about that next. Speaking of 2.5-point favorites, Texas is 2.5-point favorites at home over Vanderbilt. Who are you taking there? Right? FanDuel has a lot of good offers. Man, football is back. The NBA, if you like basketball, is back. There's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And if someone wants to tell me how to bet NBA, it is completely foreign to me, because October and November NBA basketball is a totally different sport than playoff NBA basketball. So if anyone wants to jump in and tell me how to bet those things, that would be great. So even if you miss the start of the game or want to ride a hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks, all that. You can combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps everything exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. What's up, everybody? Wrapping up the show here. Locked On Vandy. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for making us your first listen at Locked On Vandy social media. Make sure you hit it with a follow. Make sure you hit this with a sub. Make sure you hit it with a like. All that good stuff. Glad you're watching. Glad you're participating. Glad you're engaging. I'm starting to create YouTube posts, so keep in mind on that. Check it out on the audio side too, wherever you get your podcast. So here's the line. Here's how it opens. Now this thing is probably going to slide every which way. I don't know what it's going to end up at the end of the week, but Vanderbilt is 2.5-point favorites on the road at Texas. Your over-under is 45.5 points. This is an interesting one because they didn't have this line out before the season started, but I think if you did, before week one, if you put this line out, it would have been minimum 7.5 to Texas because it's a home game. Texas was number one in the country at the time. Arch Manning was a Heisman favorite at the time. Like all of the factors that you had for Texas were there. Now this game's 2.5. Vanderbilt's ranked 9th in the country, which I don't think anybody saw coming. I knew we were going to be successful, but I said 10-2 on a lot of podcasts that I went on preseason. So I mean, it's not necessarily a shock to me. I just didn't know at this point we were going to be sitting at 7-1, going, "Hey, we're talking playoffs. Like, we're a legit team." Like, oh my gosh, I thought we'd have our second loss by now and fighting to not lose 3, but here we are, and we're going into Texas like this. So one of the things that jumps off at me about Texas, and we'll break them down all week. So I'm just going to give you kind of my 30,000-foot view of the Longhorns right now, and then I'm going to continue to break them down. But what I noticed about Texas is this: they have struggled offensively to find an identity. They have struggled finding something that Arch Manning can do and do consistently well. They've struggled in that regard. They've struggled to run the ball. They've struggled to protect. They've struggled just overall operation. Even some of those wins that looked pretty, it was a struggle to get going. And that's concerning if you're Texas. And I know a lot of Texas fans are concerned about that. And you get shell shocked by Texas. Or I mean, not by Texas, but by Florida, right? Who fired their coach a couple of weeks later. So what do you make of this Texas team? They're great on defense, and I think that's why they stay in these games. And I don't think, just looking at their defense, I don't think they're as good as Missouri. I'm not sure anybody is as good as Missouri defensively in this league. They might have the best defense in this league, and that's no exaggeration. But this Texas defense gave up 38 points to Mississippi State. They went into overtime with Kentucky. I don't think it was an overly high-scoring game, but I'm going to check the score on that. But, this Texas defense, they were susceptible to some yards. They were susceptible to some things. And I think when you break that down, it really just comes down to the fact that your offense is just not doing anything. Your offense just can't stay on the field, and you're playing a lot of plays. They won 16-13 in overtime against Kentucky, so they didn't give up a ton of points there. And they, again, it's been kind of a weird year for Texas. A team that should be really good and really should be a playoff team just isn't. And they're going to struggle against A&M. They're going to struggle against Georgia. They haven't played Georgia yet. So they've got some games coming up that you're just like, oh boy, hang on here. All right. So overall, some key stats to watch. We're going to break all this down. I can't wait to break this all down with Mike Huseman later on the week when we take on the Longhorns by the numbers. And when we just kind of do a deeper dive, we're going to find some cool things. All right. So overall, they're 79th in FBS in total offense, 66th in passing, 90th in running, 66th in scoring at 29 points per game. Defensively, they're 19th in FBS in overall defense, which is pretty good. They're 66th in pass defense, which is not great, but they're 3rd in rush defense, and they're 10th in scoring. So defensively, by the numbers, pretty good. Pretty good against the run. Vanderbilt's offense, 33rd in FBS in yards per game, 70th in passing, which is no surprise. They just don't really pass. They're 24th in rushing. I think this Missouri game knocked down their stats a little bit. And they're 12th in scoring now at 38 points per game after these last couple of weeks. So Vanderbilt's defense, 31st in overall defense, 70th against the pass, 18th against the rush, 24th in scoring. When you look at third downs, Texas is 20th in third down percentage, allowing opponents to convert on 31.5% of third downs. Texas is 13th in FBS with a +7 turnover margin. Both teams are heavily penalized. Texas is 116th in FBS, averaging 65 penalty yards a game, and Vanderbilt's right there with them, 117th with a 65.8 yard average. So what you're going to have to do is this. Who gets penalized the most is what it's going to come down to. Or who gets penalized the least, I should say. And can Vanderbilt crack the code on this defense, rushing the ball? They're going to have to find something in the passing game that they can do, because they're going to have to take advantage of some of that, because Mississippi State was able to take advantage of that a little bit. I think that's why they were able to score 38 points. I didn't watch that game. I'm going to. I was watching the end of the Vanderbilt game, and I switched over to that game was like ending by the time I was fully invested in watching other games. So that was a wild finish, though. From what I saw the overtime, which I think Mississippi State had already the wheels had already fallen off. But if Vanderbilt's able to get any sort of run, they can win. That's where they're going to win, if they can establish any sort of run. And when you have Diego Pavia, anything's possible, right? Because LSU was supposed to have a great run defense, and they didn't really have many answers for Diego Pavia. So it's going to be interesting to kind of see what the game plan is there. And when I break down this Texas team, we'll see kind of where the problems are. But, I think a lot of things for Vanderbilt, they have the battle tested. They have the ugly win under their belt. They know how to do it now. So that's something that they can put in the holster there and move forward with. So until next time, Locked On Vandy, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being a part of what we do. Anchor down.